Welcome to It's a Woman's World, a show which discusses any and all topics under the sun from a woman's point of view. Hosted today by Ali Naithani.
Welcome to the show. Let's get started by introducing our co-hosts today. We have Uma Janga. Hi, Uma.
Hi, Ali. It's great to be here.
Thank you. And Dr. Susan Strauss is with us.
Hi, Ellie. Always happy to be here with the group.
All right. Happy to see you. And Janita Kathy. Hi, Janita.
Hello, how are you?
I am wonderful.
That's good.
Well, we are going to talk to our guest in just a second, and we're going to learn about sailing and her work with sailing and her passion, I'm assuming. And so let's get started. And her name is Beth Anderson. She's the founder of Women's Sail. Welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you. Oh, it's nice. Sailing is something sounds very interesting,
Peaceful,
right?
relaxing. I
I've
would
never
imagine.
been on that before, but anyway, so why did you choose this sailing? I know, when did you even start?
Well, I grew up in Minnesota where we have more boats per capita than any other state, including
We
Florida. Yes, we do. But that's power boats. And I grew up in a power boating family. We skied, we tubed, we do all of that. And 13 years ago, a friend of mine who sails where I do now invited me to go sailing. And I thought, why not? I'd never been on a sailboat. And so I went down to Pepin, Wisconsin, which is about 70 miles southeast of the Minneapolis airport, right on the Mississippi River, on Lake Pepin. It's a wide spot on the Mississippi, and got on a sailboat. And looking back now, 10 minutes into sailing, he knew I was hooked.
Really?
Took me a couple more hours.
How did he know you were hooked in 10 minutes?
Because we shut the engines off, put the sails up, shut the engines off, and he handed the wheel over to me, and the smile on my face, that was
Really?
it. That was it. Now, it turns out, again, hindsight's 2020, I had done a vision board about 5 years earlier, and there's a huge sailboat in the middle of it. I just thought it was a pretty picture. But that was hanging in my office.
Wow.
I had never been on a sailboat, never thought about sailing, and it changed my life. So once Pepin got high-speed internet, because I'm a website developer, I needed to wait. Dial-up wasn't good enough 13 years ago.
Yeah.
And so about 6 months later, they got high-speed internet, and I sold my house in Minneapolis and moved.
Wow.
So for those of us that are basically ignorant to the sport of sailing, but it's very intriguing, it always seems like this peaceful, relaxing thing that people enjoy. Can you just give us the basics of, okay, you're getting ready to do it. What do you have to do to prepare? What do you do once you get on the boat? What's this thing with the sail up? Tell us a little about just, I'm going to go sailing for the first time. What does that look like?
Yeah.
Sure. Well, if you're going to come sailing with me, because it is different depending on what kind of boat and what size of boat, are you going for a bicycle ride or you're going to go ride in a Lamborghini? You would wear different things. You would have a different experience, but they're both transportation, right? So I have a 30-foot boat, which is about 30% bigger than most ski boats that you would, the boats that people drive in Minnesota, fishing ski boats are 16 to 18 to 20 feet. So this is half again bigger. She sleeps 6 and has a full bathroom and a full kitchen.
Oh, my.
So you can go below, and so it's a much bigger boat than most people, if they have ever been sailing, they think of it as what they did at Y Camp. In a little tiny boat with a big life jacket, and you're tipping over all the time, and you're getting wet, and it's a lot of work. That's not this kind of sailing. That's called wet butt sailing. Sorry, but that's what it's called because you get wet. This is more cocktail and appetizer type sailing.
So what kind of places do you cover? Where do you go typically?
My boat weighs 8,600 pounds, and she needs a crane to get pulled out of the water, which she is only in the water when the water's soft.
Okay.
The lake is now frozen, so she's out of the water. It's called being on the hard.
Okay.
So she's sitting on a big cradle waiting for spring. And so in my instance, you can't just pull her out on a trailer and take her to the next lake over. She would need a truck. So
Okay.
I sail on Lake Pepin, which is a wide spot on the Mississippi River.
Oh,
So I could, for all intents and purposes, come up to St. Paul and down to the Gulf of Mexico.
Oh,
That's what I was going to ask you.
Okay.
Have you ever been tempted
Yeah.
to sail down and get into the Gulf or go out into the Caribbean and just hang out there for a couple of months sailing?
Well, that's a very frequent question, And my answer has always been, it'd be easier and cheaper to go down and buy a second boat.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because it would take a couple of months to do it. If are you used to ski boats or fishing
Yes.
boats? Okay, I have an 11-horse motor
Oh,
on an 8,600-pound boat.
got it.
She doesn't move well
No.
under motor. That's not her
Okay.
intent. The motor is to get it out of the marina and back into the marina.
I'm sorry.
My goal is to get out onto the water, get the sails up, and shut the motor off. And that's the peace and the quiet and the calm part. That's where and you really have to experience it. Because we're all used to running around, or lots of us are used to running around in big power boats, and they shake a little bit. And
Well, so if you wanted to, though, could you get your boat, say, down to the Caribbean or the Gulf, put up your sails and just veg
Yes.
there?
yeah, she's a big enough boat that she's ocean worthy,
And how would you get her down there since she's so big?
down the Mississippi River.
Oh, so you'd still do that with the 11 horsepower
Oh yeah,
motor
going
and-
down would be fine.
Okay,
It'd be coming back that
Got
would be a
it.
little tragic.
And what about nausea, motion sickness on it?
That's a great question too. A lot of times, the first indication of dehydration is nausea, and usually oftentimes seasickness on a lake situation like this is not really seasickness as much as it is dehydration.
Really?
Right. So oftentimes, as long as I make sure that everybody stays hydrated, which there's always a lot of water. The boat's got refrigeration, so we've got water. Stay hydrated, and we can stave that off. I've really only had, in 13 years, 2 people, and it was a pretty windy day, and that wasn't working for them. So we just take them back to the dock. It's not that
Yeah,
big a deal.
so
You know,
sure.
I'm not going 6 hours out in the ocean. This
Yeah.
is more of a 2 to 3 hour afternoon kind of thing.
So what about people who don't know swimming like me? I'm so scared of water.
Yeah,
Yeah, that was my question
So,
too.
oh my God, I'm
exactly.
Tell us about that.
exactly. Like we're sitting here now, though it's called the cockpit, where you would be sitting in the boat. And you're sitting pretty much like you would.
Okay.
And the edges of the boat would be here. So the boat really doesn't, you'd be closer to it in a ski boat or a fishing boat than you're closer to the water. Now that said, a sailboat heels. People sometimes think it's going to tip over because it's heeled, and that's the motion is when you see a sailboat under sail, when it tips a little bit. So it can do that, but I can run the boat depending on what you want. I have friends that come down and we go out in 30-knot winds and we put all the sail up and tip her over as far as we can go and have a blast.
Oh,
But we also, in that same amount of wind, can keep the boat flat and moving, and you wouldn't be afraid at all.
So Beth, how do you keep the boat flat though? How do you so my question is, how do you maintain control? Like if the
without
winds pick up, or if you find yourself in a storm, how do you as a sailor, how do you maintain control
Sure.
of her?
You can, you set the sails
Okay.
depending on where you want to go. Sails are like airplanes. So if you think of I don't know, did any of you watch the big U.S. sailing, the America's Cup stuff? Okay, then I don't have to try and explain that. Sails are like a wing on an airplane, only they're this way instead of this way. And it has to do with air pressure above and below the sail, one side or the other, that gives you lift, all of that kind of stuff, whatever. Once you know how to sail, you can reduce the amount of sail, which then changes the dynamics of the boat. Or you change the angle of the sail. If the boat is like this and your sails are straight up and down, I can move those sails so they're out over here or on this side of the boat. So it all has to do with angles, and the direction of the wind has to do with how the boat handles and which direction you want to go. Okay. I can't sail directly into the wind. So I'm across the lake from Lake City, and oftentimes we want to go up to Lake City. It's 6 nautical miles up the river. If you're Lake City and the wind is coming directly from Lake City, I can't drive my boat under sail directly to you. I have to go over here, and then over here, and over here, back and forth. And that's what tacking is called.
tacking,
When you
yeah.
see people do that,
yeah.
that's what they're doing, is because I can't sail in that direct into the wind.
How did you learn how to, I mean, did you have to take classes, and how many? And
Well,
then plus you don't have a small boat, so is there another challenge to having a larger size boat and being competent as a sailor?
Actually, I would say the bigger boat is easier to sail than the smaller boats because they're more forgiving. Okay, just like a car is more forgiving than a bicycle. Think of it that way.
okay.
It's not as difficult. I was fortunate enough that the friend who originally invited me sailing is also a sailing instructor.
Oh,
And so I sailed with him for 3.5 years, helped run his sailboat, and he was just more than generous with his time and attention. So he's the one who taught me to sail.
so with your business then, what is that exactly? Do people call you and say, we want to go sailing for a couple of hours and we want hors d'oeuvres and whatever? How does that work?
Yes. You need, in order to take people on a boat for pay, whether you're a fishing guide or a sailor or whatever, you need to have what's known as the nickname for it is a captain's license from the
okay.
U.S. Coast Guard.
Oh,
And I just did all of that training this year. Before this fall, I just took people for fun.
Okay.
I have a meetup group called Women
Oh,
Sail.
I remember reading about
and
that.
I just took people for fun. Now I'm going to turn it more into a business and take people for pay. But yes, that's exactly it. Contact me and we figure out a date and a time
and I think I saw that it was like 80 people that came to your meetup, even though you thought it would only be a couple, or am I remembering that wrong?
I have a boat that seats, well, it can take 9. Under the license, it'll be 6 plus me, plus maybe one other person, so 8, and that's about what is comfortable on the boat. I've had 15 friends on her at one time, but I wouldn't do that, that was just a one-time deal, so.
So who are your typical passengers? Is it
Oh,
women
good
or
idea.
women or kids or?
Well, and that's oftentimes because it's the website and everything else is WIMNSAIL.com.
Okay.
When you say it aloud, it's women's sail, but when you write it out, it's very fun to watch, and it's not gender specific. Some people see Wisconsin, Minnesota, some people see women. It just depends. So it's just, I like puns. I registered the domain name 10 years ago, and I'm just starting to use it now.
So who are
So-
your passengers?
I've had everybody from babe in arms, quite literally, all the way up to, we took a gentleman friend who's 86. His dad, Jim's probably the oldest person that's been on the boat, but it just doesn't matter. She's a big girl.
Beth, when you talked a little bit initially about how when you had the wheel in your hands and you just took over, but tell us more about what does it mean to you to sail? And why is it sailing? And I think it's fascinating that you,
it's so
and you, as you
fascinating.
talked about your vision board, you put a sailboat
I know.
there, right?
I know. Be careful of those vision boards.
It was almost an unconscious type of thing.
Yeah,
so.
it's sailing to me, the magic of it is that you're moving without an engine running. From a boating standpoint, I just think it's magic. It feels like magic. Obviously, over the years, I've learned how to do it. I know all the mechanics of it, but it still feels like magic. And what it means to me, I'm single, no kids. I work for myself from home. I live in a tiny little town. So while other people like to sail alone for the quiet and the peace kind of, to me it's a social activity and I just enjoy sharing it with other people. That's why the meetup group, because I didn't have enough friends to go sailing with. Now once I started the meetup group, I had 79 days on the water last summer.
Wow.
So out of 180 days, I was on the water 79 of them, always with other, I don't think I was out once up by myself. So it's just it's a sense of control is part of it. I don't know if you've ever done the passion test, but you figure out what your passion is, and everybody said, oh, your passion's sailing. Actually, once we delve deeper into it, it's more a matter of control and happiness and peace and a sense of well-being, a direction. It's very clear how to get from point A to point B to me. where sometimes on land that's not really as true. So it's more of a spiritual experience to me. So it's humorous because I said for years I'm not going to turn it into a business because I don't want to turn my passion into a business. Except, aren't we all supposed to be doing a job
Yes,
that is our
yes.
passion?
Yes. Right.
So it's that whole conversation that,
Yeah.
but I just really like being on the water. I always want to be on the water, and this is a great way to do it.
As I had mentioned to you before, I was reading about Einstein, that was in the paper, the article, on how he said he liked to go sailing all alone. He didn't want anyone there with him. And it was his time to just be alone with his thoughts and having it being peaceful and quiet with no interruptions into his thinking. So do you ever find that it does that? I mean, you kind of allude to it a little bit.
It does. What I found interesting, and we're kind of calling it conversations from the boat, because what I realized very clearly this summer was that I don't play music. I want to listen to the wind and the water and the boat. I don't play music on the boat. Other people do. That's not for me. So we don't, because I'm the captain and I get to make those decisions. I ask people to shut their phones off. At least shut the ringer off, and that's pretty, just tell people you can't get any coverage, which is totally not true. It's better on the lake than it is in town. But people have used that excuse to disconnect. And what you find, I mean, I've had friends get off the boat and tell me that their blood pressure absolutely has dropped. We end up in conversations at least half a dozen times this summer where people have said, wow, I haven't, they tell some story and, wow, I haven't told that story in years. Or I hear this a lot, I've never told anybody that at all. And I find that to be magic.
Maybe you need to write a book about this.
Perhaps.
Yeah.
Great idea.
And I'm just curious, is sailing popular among women? Are you a minority in the sport? And do you see it growing amongst women?
I belong to an online Facebook closed group of 5,000 women worldwide that sail.
Wow.
But I would bet half of them sail because of a man in their life, which is one of the things that makes me unique. I've been told there are 3 marinas on the lake, about 1,100 boats, and I've been told, I certainly don't know how true this is, but he's probably pretty close, that there are only 6 boats owned by women. So the rest of them are it's considered more of a male sport. Certainly here in Minnesota. I grew up in Alexandria, which is, there are 200 lakes within 20 miles. I don't remember ever even seeing a sailboat growing up. So it's different.
Yeah.
It's different. But I want to open it up to more women because you get a woman on a sailboat, and it's that shutting that engine off, I tell you, and they just go, oh.
Oh, well said, Beth. Thank you so much for being with us today. This was great to hear about how you're putting your passion to work.
We can see the passion.
You can see it.
Yeah, you can. It's
Absolutely.
fun.
Well, come sailing with me.
It sounds great.
We may need to do It's a Woman's World episode.
Oh,
On the boat.
We may need to do that.
Oh, yeah.
That's a wonderful idea.
Absolutely. Middle of April, end of October, somewhere in there, we're good.
Yeah.